No, you're
Um,
fine. I don't care. I'm
so,
just gonna fly around.
well, did you get a chance to check out the stuff behind us?
Oh, where is it?
Okay, yeah. So let's go back over there real quick. So the place we were sitting at, that was like the hut or whatever. I'm trying to look at it here. So there's the hut and then there's the graves. The hut here with some supplies. There's like some bottles in there. It makes me think the dude was like a reclusive alcoholic or something. And then you've got two large graves and one small one. Like I don't know how to read into all this. I mean, they're old graves, they're not fresh. They've been overgrown with weeds and stuff. But if you go over towards the island, there's like, there's a post, there's a broken boat or whatever, but this guy over here, like go over there. Like over there. Yeah. Hang on, I'm probably gonna have to dismount or something. All right, you see this guy?
Oh, yeah, I'm looking at him.
Yeah, so he's holding a gun. He and it's like a scaled down rifle. I think this guy is it's meant to imply that he shot himself. And like I don't know, the way I read this is he put himself on this island away from his family because he was like going angry or something, like going mad, and I don't know, he shot himself in the head, I guess.
That's morbid.
It's pretty morbid, but then things get really weird if you turn around directly behind you and fly towards that tree. This is where things get a lot weirder. The big tree behind you, towards Ashenvale. Yeah. I mean,
Oh, this tree.
yeah, yeah. And see, like, this is yeah. Keep going past it. Like, there's no obvious path here, and that's the weirdest thing. Yeah, keep going. All right, now you see those trees ahead of us. You see that tree stump down there? Fly towards it.
This is getting creepy.
See, yeah, yeah. And it's not until you get right
Oh
here
my gosh.
that you finally see it.
There's two dead little kids.
Yeah, I don't think those are quite gnomish skeletons. They look kind of like children to me, but like it's just what freaks me out about this place is Blizzard didn't make it obvious it was here. There's no hints, there's no clues hardly. I mean, and there's only one possible clue, and that is at the island that guy was at. There's also another hollow tree stump in the same orientation that this one's in. So one could infer that travel that way until you find a second stump kind of thing. But I mean, it was just me mostly, just my morbid curiosity and habit of have of flying around in circles that I found this. It was just crazy. So whatever the hell's going on here is weird.
Blizzard, we want answers. You heard it here.
Yeah, yeah, and like I feel sorry for the people at Blizzard who were like hoping that someone will find this. But if you look at like these textures and these assets and these have been here for a super long time. Like a while. The pearls that we have in Legion look way better than these pearls. Like I have no idea how long this stuff has been here. I mean,
But
this
but still, that was like there was a thought process that went into that. Like two skeletons and a pearl.
yeah.
What?
Uh-huh. And I mean, and so you have if those graves over there aren't empty, then you have six bodies here. Underneath in the water, there's some old night elf ruins, and that's kind of all I could find in there.
Oh,
Um,
can we go submarine?
yeah,
Boom.
if you dive. So I mean, there's some old night elf ruins here. Same kind of stuff they've been using for night elf ruins since like vanilla WoW.
Well, Night Elf ruins underwater equals Naga.
Yeah.
All right. Well, how about we do some introductions?
Oh yeah, that stuff.
So, welcome everyone. Uh, I'm IndyLohan, and I play this game far too much. This is my buddy Kaggo. We play this game way too much. Uh, what's up, Kag?
Hey, what's up, Annie?
So we've just been recently, with all the hype of the next expansion. What's it gonna be? We've been doing a little speculation, pretty much since the beginning of Legion, really, wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah, for like the beginning of forever. I think we've been having crazy conspiracies ever since we were playing like WoD.
That's true, but I mean, at this point, Jaina could be a Dreadlord, right? That's like the common theory now.
Oh yeah, yeah. Novel cracked that shit. I mean, well, cracked. I don't think it's actually true. I think it's a great fan theory, but I mean, for the the only way for that to work is for Blizzard to be like, Jaina is in prison somewhere, and she's been replaced by a Dreadlord imposter. But after Legion, the Burning Legion's kind of like old news. Like why bring up the Burning Legion again with Jaina being a Dreadlord? It's kind of like either they need to wrap that shit up quick, or like I just don't see that being in the next expansion.
I agree. No, and I think that there's truth in that. Jaina is definitely not herself lately. Um, and maybe that is just her character shifting, which would be, I would think, a bit more strong of a narrative than Jaina just, oh, I was corrupted. I'm not evil, but I found an evil for, like, I think it's stronger that she just is acting of her own volition. But that's my sentiment on the idea. But nevertheless, conspiracies have been all the rage in Legion, and I think they've been brought to the forefront more so than normal. Everybody's talking about it, and especially the next expansion. Um, and there's a couple things, a couple things you like to theorize, or just, hey, this would be cool. What if this was? So, what we're gonna do today is sort of like a speculation video, sort of a hype video. All of it may be completely baseless, but as two nerds of the series, I think it'll be fun, and we can go on this little adventure, and who knows, maybe we'll get some stuff right. If Blizzard, if you're listening, you can take any of these ideas. They're free. You can use them. Please use them.
I don't know. Sometimes I worry that like Blizzard has heard some of these like really kick-ass theories, and they've been like, "Man, that's awesome," but now we can't do it because people are going to say we're just copying stuff from the internet.
Yeah, that's why Blizzard, this is all yours.
All
You
yours,
can.
Blizzard.
Nobody has ever heard of us before. Okay, you can take it as your own, and people will believe you.
Yeah.
Uh, so the first thing I wanted to talk about was I think the biggest thing with an expansion, more so than lore, more so than anyone, the most broad appeal is new classes and new races. And that's what I want to kind of start with. What are your thoughts on new classes, new races? What would you like to see, Gag?
I don't want to see any new ones. I know that's a really weird thing to say, but I don't want to see any more. Because we have so much material. I don't want Blizzard to add more things. I want them to deepen what they have. So the rumor of the Tinkerer, I like that because it's giving more to the goblins and the gnomes, which
You
is
don't want to
like
be a you don't want to be a torrent tinkerer.
I'll take it. Taking like whatever they'll give us, but like WoW already has so much jam packed into it, and almost every fantasy, every supernatural monster, werewolves, vampires, ghosts, goblins, like everything is in WoW at this point. So like. I don't mind them doubling down on what they have because like what other new monster or crazy race are they gonna add, you know?
So are you talking about like sub races? Because I've heard a lot of talk of like, oh, I want to play, a Dragon Maw orc, or I want to play, a ice troll, or that kind of thing.
Yes, yes, I would kill for sub races because like, I'm not super stoked about, playing a Naga and like a new race just means like, well, I don't know. But yeah, like I'm not super stoked about playing like a Naga or an ogre.
Well, there's a couple things that I want to go back on because they're kind of like get ahead of ourselves. But the first thing is Tinkerer. Like, let's take a moment and say, okay, Blizzard's gonna introduce the Tinkerer. Let's just theorize. Uh, how do you think it would be? Like specs, you know, abilities. What do you see? Because I have some ideas, but I want to hear like any thoughts from you.
I'm thinking if they did it, it would be pretty much like that guy from Heroes of the Storm. What's his name?
Gazlo.
Yes, yes. It would. I think it would pretty much be him. Uh, Especially if WoW, was going in like this weird direction where they're finally gonna take, you know, the opportunity to push things in a little bit more of a real-time strategy direction. Like attacking structures and stuff in the next expansion, possibly with us seeing a different implementation of the garrison system because I think that's kind of what we have now we have this weird garrison system that's kind of repeating itself with
Class
Suramar
Hall.
class halls. Yeah, so like whatever that system is in the next Xpac might have us destroying buildings. Blizzard will be like, great, let's add a siege class and just do like some crazy stuff with that.
Well, here's what I think. I'm trying to think of this as a realistic. I could see Blizzard doing this just because of Blizzard's track record and what they do, how they tend to like sort of make copies of the things from their other games and bringing them into the class. So the first thing that got me thinking about Tinkerer would be kind of like what you said, going along that Gazlo class fantasy. Would be like a Robo Mech Warrior pilot type tank class, right? And he uses just a mech, and that's his class fantasy, if you will. He's the mech tinkerer or the robo tinkerer. Um, what what I see them doing with that, and I actually legitimately could see this happening, is adding. I don't know how his entire kit would work, but it would revolve around him being a tank. That when he died, he would have a similar mechanic to D.Va from Overwatch, where he would pop out of his mech and his mech would explode. And then he could go around and maybe like Torbjorn go and pick up scrap from the battlefield and sort of like rebuild his mech. So when your tank died, he might be out of the fight for like I don't know a minute or two, just trying to, or maybe that's too long, but just kind of rebuilding his mech, and then he can rebuild his mech and get back in it and get back in the fight. So it's not a battle res, but it's sort of like Death Knights have Purgatory, Holy or Prot Paladins have Bubbles. This could be his sort of mechanic, if you will, and I could really see that happening because Blizzard tends to take like ideas from other games and bring it back into other games. I mean, just that's sort of my idea around that, and I think that like D.Va, he could have an ultimate ability where he could trigger his mech on purpose and then like I don't know, like super build his mech up really quick so he could get back into the fight. But that's one of my ideas. Thoughts?
Um, it almost sounds too good for Blizzard to do, like and then like hopefully it wouldn't end up like that thing that happened to monks where because you remember when monks were first supposed to they came out and it was like, oh yeah guys, you just get to press buttons, no more cooldowns on attacks, like really buy into this Street Fighter fantasy as they put it at one point, and like it sounded so good, but like if they break their own game. But
And now it's just like face mash AoE and do top DPS.
yeah, but like I do think it's a good idea, and there's only one way I could really see WoW doing that, and that is if they kind of double down on what they're doing. Because I think WoW is moving in a direction. I think they're focusing a lot more on mechanics and like strategy. I think like when Karazhan first came out, it was it didn't really matter if you were top DPS. You had to know to avoid certain things.
The return to Karazhan.
Yes, Return to Karazhan. So like if they want to push like composition and decision making, which is what they're doing with Overwatch, like they're taking what Valve put down, and which was Counter Strike, which was skill, twitch shooting, kind of like clutch reflex, AK-47 headshots kind of thing, and and they're I don't know. I don't even know how to say it, but it's a much more friendly experience that's more focused on making the right decisions rather than pushing buttons the fastest and all that other stuff. So if they wanted to expand the classes into things that really challenge people to make better decisions, you're a better raider. You can put it more sense, but like I can see
No,
them
I,
doing that.
I see what you mean. I think it would have to have its place, but I don't know. As a class fantasy, I would totally play a spec that could just like pop out and be like, "See you guys. I'm gonna go build my mech during this boss fight."
Uh,
um, but I mean that's just the tank spec. I also have an idea for a DPS spec or a sapper, if you will. If you remember the unit from Warcraft 3, the Goblin Sappers.
oh my god, I wish I could play as a sapper in this game so bad. I loved the sappers.
Well, yeah, that's my idea. Is that they're very AOE focused. They're not casters like a lot of they kind of fit the hunter in the sense that they're not casters. They do physical damage. They're not just about doing magic damage, but they would they would do physical damage through bombs, through guns, through shrapnel, what have you. But the main focus would be on a sapper. When they died, they would explode and do like 12 million damage to all the mobs. So you could actually, that would be sort of like the class fantasy of it, that they literally go kaboom when you're done. Um, but also maybe playing in that you could trigger that on purpose and have some mechanics in there. I don't know. Maybe you could survive it in a way or something like that. I just figured it'd be fun to sort of have that fantasy of that Warcraft 3 unit, because a lot of the Warcraft 3 units have been made into one class or the other. Wardens sort of gave their fan of knives to rogues, and their blink to mages and that sort of thing. But like, it's just a unit. I always loved the Goblin Sappers, and I think it'd be really fun to be a bomb throwing, pistol wielding, you know, uh, Goblin Sapper, and just and play a DPS spec like that.
Yeah.
And that would obviously bring up, well, you maybe add bombs, add pistols to the weapon pool, which I think would be really fun. Nice little twist. I mean, we added Warglaves this expansion, so I mean, Blizzard has the capacity to add more weapons.
I certainly hope so. And they finally started giving us weapons and scenarios again, which is kind of weird. But there's so much room, and like Legion has come through, and it has changed everything. Like, how many people were expecting the Legion to show up in bona fide spaceships?
Oh
Like,
yeah,
what the hell? Like, so, cause like I don't know, cause when you talk like that, it kind of like reminds me, like when Legion came out, I realized that I had really been like fighting change when it came to Warcraft, because it's really obvious looking back, like, oh my god, we've been technologically advancing for like a long time. Like they this then I can kind of look back on it and appreciate things, because yeah, like Warcraft had like gyrocopters or whatever, but we're kind of at a point in WoW where we've been like advancing technologically, and that's actually way interesting to think about when you give it the chance. So
oh
hell
yeah,
yeah, if you could put in like some new age tech with the next class. Yeah.
yeah.
Part of me's kind of sad, because I really do enjoy like my Warcraft 1 orcs versus humans kind of like, low tech fantasy, but at the same time, if WoW was like that for the past 10 years, I probably wouldn't be playing it because I'd be bored to death of it.
Yeah, and I mean, it you've got to evolve as you go forward, and I think WoW has done it in a somewhat logical way. I mean, I think the biggest leap we've had is, oh wow, Legion's here and there's spaceships, but in a way, when you think about it, it really does fit into the fantasy, and it fits into the story. It's not as jarring as first thought of. I mean, the Legion has been the Burning Legion's been here for millenniums, terrorizing the twisting nether, and so yeah, it makes
Ooh,
sense that they had
that's a good
spaceships.
point. They're like an advanced civilization gone rogue. I mean, that almost makes them sound like the Reapers from Mass Effect, and that kind of gives me chills. Like, whoa.
And we've been beating them with fireballs and swords.
Yeah.
But to finish off my tinker idea, and then a lot of people have talked about this, but a medic class, and to go into more specifics, I'm seeing like, again, pulling from Overwatch, Ana has her biotic grenade. She has like long range snipes and that kind of thing, kind of borrowing from SWOTOR a little bit in that sense of just like a high tech, using heal bots and shooting like biotic enhancing bullets or whatever. I don't know what you would call it. It's probably the one I've thought the least about, because healing, like, well, come on, who's gonna pick the healer class when you can be a mech, or you can literally blow up? But no, I think there is a potential there to do sort of fill that fantasy of sort of like a sapper that's like, you know what, I'm gonna heal everybody instead. Call it a medic or whatever.
If it was anything like a true support class, I would be all over that.
Well, and I was thinking like you could have portals and like paradoxes, and it's sort of like a recall, because you could be just all about supporting tech instead of like exploding tech. So yeah, you could totally throw like time. portals and stuff into there. Somebody's about to die and you just rewind time for them real quick or something.
Just a bunch of like captured Legion technology from when we take over Argus.
Yeah, and I could see them like repurposing that and sort of like, Legion Mancer medic. I don't know.
Yeah, because wow. Now that you bring that up, there's so much ancient technology in WoW. Because we've spent a lot of time. I'm saying this as we fly, is like we fly over like this place, right? Because it's like we've been discovering, Titan technology, but we haven't been able to utilize it. Like if we finally crack it and we start incorporating like Titan tech, I guess you could say, redeeming ourselves from like the curse of the flesh. Holy shit. I mean, that opens up all kinds of crazy stuff. I mean, maybe it's too crazy for Blizzard to pick up and run with, but it's sure fun to think about.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up because in a lot of fantasy, you talk about the ancient, powerful civilizations, and we're talking about the Titans, which are literally our gods. It's interesting that they don't have more advanced technology. It's almost on par with what we have, kind of because magic is way more important in the Warcraft universe than tech is. But it's an interesting dichotomy when you look at the Legion, who has spaceships and teleporters and all those kinds of things. So it's interesting that they have that sort of thing. Sargeras was a Titan, so maybe he advanced his own tech to have spaceships and stuff. And I mean, we haven't seen that with the Titans really. It's been more magical, if you will, than technological. Whereas the Legion seems to be more sci-fi.
Yeah, which is something I still don't really understand. And I guess that kind of goes back to the little bit of my confusion over, the power levels in WoW, and not everything seems to really fit together for me. Like why, and you brought this up a little bit before. It's like if the next, you know, raid or whatever, we're going to be killing literal gods, then what are we? Why can we attack someone's toe and eventually kill them? It's just I'm still really confused by a lot of that.
I
Uh,
was reading on, I think Wowhead, or maybe it was MMO Champion, I can't remember. Somewhere on the internet I was reading, and somebody had said Blizzard stated that the most powerful ally or enemy that we've defeated by solely ourselves without external help was Raden. He was the extra boss, heroic only boss in Isle of Thunder, the Thunder King. I don't remember what that raid was called in
really?
Pandaria. Yeah, and they said that was the strongest enemy that we've ever faced by ourselves and won, which is interesting to think about because we've killed quite a few, you know, powerhouses. But what does that say for us? Because even now, I mean, we're going to fight Kil'jaeden, and we have Valen and Khadgar, and even though Khadgar doesn't really help, but Illidan helping us fight Kil'jaeden, and it's just interesting to think that we have all these heroes when Blizzard has stated, well, we're kind of becoming on par with Thrall, with Illidan, with Jaina, with all of these heroes, and what does that mean for the expansion? Because I think at some point, you have your villains, and we'll talk about these later, but you have your villains like troll warlords or Deathwings that are just crazy mad and stuff, and they're kind of just like, I'm crazy and I'm powerful and I'm just going to attack you. But I think that a lot of the villains that we have left have been biding their time because they're intelligent, and that kind of makes me wonder, uh, are are we going to fight them head on, or are they going to have some sort of plot in place for us to actually, you know, sort of back off of us because they've seen what we've taken down. I mean, we've taken down dragons, we've killed the Lich King, we've repelled the freaking Legion, if all goes well on Argus. So I gotta think that villains at this point are like, you know what, maybe we shouldn't mess with them, which I think could introduce a cool new story element going forward. And there is the possibility that it's like, oh no, Nazoth is here and he's gonna come and kill us. But I would think that they would have sort of realized that, oh man, these guys are actually pretty powerful, and see how that goes forward into the storytelling.
I
Um,
hope so.
but to continue our conversation on classes, the only other one that I think I've heard a lot about is the Necromancer. What are your thoughts on the necromancer?
This is literally the first time I've heard about it.
Oh, really?
And I just dropped something in awe. Like, oh my god, a necromancer in WoW. One, I mean, that sounds pretty OP, but like at the same time, I could also see how it could be super nerfed and kind of dumb. But that wouldn't stop me from playing it. I would, I
Well,
would love just to run around and be like, look at my skeleton family.
the interesting thing is it's a Warcraft 3 unit, as we all know, as all of us super nerds know. Um, and it's not, it's strangely missing, and it seems like that would be a easy class to be like, yeah, throw that into WoW. And a lot of people have said, well, this is the Unholy Death Knight, and he's basically just a plated necromancer. So why would you want a necromancer? But I don't think that holds up, because I think a lot of people's fantasy of being that kind of cloth, clad, powerful undead sorcerer sort of thing. I think that resonates with some people, and they don't necessarily want to play a Death Knight and a Holy Death Knight. What are your thoughts on that?
Um, I think it's one of those things, or it sounds like one of those things that's been brought up in like the developer conference room more than once, and they've had some discussions about, and no one's been able to settle on. Like it really sounds like one of those things that a guy walks in, and he's like, guys, come on, necromancers and WoW, and like three of the guys at the table like run their fingers through their hair, and they're like, Steve, I know you really want it, I really want it, but we've been working on the warlock quest line, and how are we going to incorporate that? What classes are going to be? Can you have Tauren warlocks? Like, how does that make sense? And they're just like bickering with each other about it. Like it sounds like there's not enough of a difference there for them to make a move on it, which is like a
Yeah,
weird thing to think about. But
it is interesting because you have the Warlock, which I think functionally serves the same purpose as the Necromancer. Summon a lot of things and fight with those things. And the Death Knight, which sort of serves the flavor of the Necromancer. It's just not cloth plated, and you're sort of, a Death Knight. And it's just weird because I think that with a lot of players, I personally would rather play a Necromancer than a Warlock or a Unholy Death Knight. I'm not a big caster guy in the first place, but if I had to have a choice, I'd be like, no, I think I want to summon an army of skeletons. As you're going through a dungeon, you're going through those mythic pluses, and you're just raising up skeletons of the packs you're killing and throwing them into the next pack. Like, I think that'd be really fun.
oh
But
yeah, or rezzing the skeletons of your other raid members. The more you guys wipe, the stronger you get. Now that would be a cool balancing thing.
no, and I think it could be a very cool idea, but I guess I kind of understand Blizzard's point of view, where they're like, but like, how do we make this into the game? And I think that if you had, if you visited the Frozen Throne again, if you visited Undead and the Scourge, I don't know if that's possible, but if you did, there's a place for the Necromancer. You might be able to make that work, but just into another expansion, no, I don't think it works as much as I think it would be very cool.
Or yeah, or even if they just double down on like Scholomance or whatever, which I guess in this expansion we destroyed with help of Lily and Voss. I don't think there's technically a Scholomance left.
I think we cleared it out. Like that was in Mists of Pandaria, right, when it got revamped.
Yeah, which is like, okay, Miss Pandaria. So it's like a real shame to me because like when I was playing through Warcraft 3, I loved the idea of the Cult of the Damned. The whole level where you snuck around as Arthas, like recruiting your secret cult members.
Oh, I love it.
Oh, that was so nice, and like I really enjoyed that, and I didn't quite feel that again with all the Twilight people and stuff. It didn't really feel like the same thing, but like I do kind of miss that like feeling of this super shady cult is laying underneath the skin of Azeroth, trying to overthrow us or whatever. And it eventually busted out with the Twilight Hammer thing, but that never really felt really cool.
We'll keep that vibe in mind because we're going to talk about something later that's going to come back to that. But I just want to finish up with the class sort of race combo talking about. Have you played a paladin at all in Legion? Have you done the class campaign?
No, I haven't, but apparently some weird ass stuff's going on.
Oh yeah, I mean, spoiler alert. If you haven't played it, but there's the unholy or the holy dreadlord, which is really weird. It's like a light dreadlord, and that's really weird. I haven't personally looked into it much. I just saw him. This paladin is not my main, but I was like, what? There's a holy dreadlord. This is getting crazy. But one of the cooler moments in the campaign for me was you quest alongside a night elf priest, and you help her out with like a bunch of stuff, and she realizes how important it is to slay the legion, and she needs more power. And she actually you convert her from a priest into a paladin, which was a really interesting concept to me because she is a night elf paladin, which is not a possible race combo uh, in the game currently. So I wonder if in the next expansion we'll see some more expanded race class combos, Night Elf Paladins. Um, are there any others that you would sort of like to see? I mean, I think the one that comes to both of our mind is Orc Paladins.
Yes, that's exactly because and really for me, because I've always like yeah, I've wanted to play a paladin, but I love playing orcs. But the orc paladin gear, I'm sorry, the paladin gear looks so good on orcs. It looks so good on orcs. Especially like the mop gear. Oh wow, looks so good. Um, that would be a nice change, and also I think it'd be a nice thing for the lore because like the whole my character is an alien and isn't recognized by the light. So all this fighting that I'm doing against the Legion in the name of the light doesn't really apply to me because the light literally doesn't recognize me because I'm an alien. Like, so
But
that's
Draenei
really
are
weird. Yeah, but the Draenei are okay or something. So okay.
okay.
Like
Yeah,
I've like a quick sidetrack. Like I've come to terms with the fact that playing an orc warrior is a really good way to alienate yourself from a lot of WoW because a lot of things don't become relevant to you anymore when you're both an orc and a warrior.
um, have you heard Blizz talk about undead paladins and how they can't do that because undead can't control the holy power because it would destroy them.
That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, but holy priests are okay.
Oh God.
So I,
Right.
I could see them maybe like fudging something there and being like, oh, undead can use it now. Like, why did priests get to use it this whole time? Maybe it was like, oh, they found peace with the light and it changed them internally so that they could actually wield. I don't know, something like that. But I think I think that if you're going to add night elf paladins, the only horde alternative could be undead. I mean, as much as I'd like to see orc paladins, I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah. Which yeah, I'm down for. I'm down for playing not necessarily a quote unquote better WoW because we all have our own like versions of that, but like a smarter WoW. Like I wouldn't mind them kind of going back and cuz I think the new team they have a little bit of freedom. Like that sign that's posted at like the very top of High Mountain or whatever. That's kind of like a salute to some of the past developers. They're like, hope, let us, achieve even greater heights than you have or something. And it kind of sounded like the baton being passed from one WoW team to another one with Crits Mess and leaving and stuff. I wouldn't mind them kind of taking the opportunity to build a smarter WoW where some of these things are kind of knitted up and make a little bit more sense because either A, all of this stuff is canon because there's some weird shit going on, or B, there's just stuff that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and I feel that. I think that I've always viewed WoW as vanilla as the base, or maybe even vanilla BC and Wrath being tied into one sort of unit. And I think Cataclysm is sort of the bridge between two different types of WoW. And then at least I viewed Miss Pandaria, WoD, and Legion as sort of like a continuous story, something that's just it's been growing on itself. It's a different game than Vanilla and BC and Wrath, but it's still it's almost like another era of the game. And I wonder if in the next expansion we'll sort of be seeing a new era of the game, or if we're gonna sort of keep in this WoD Legion style of gameplay and tier progression and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um, so quickly, just to finish it up, the only thing we have to talk about is races. I think the races everybody has talked about is Naga and Ogre, which personally always wanted Naga. I wanted Naga as a Warcraft 3 playable race in multiplayer. I've wanted to play Naga in WoW, and I think a lot of the community has too. And I almost feel that doing that, even though there are the technical limitations, I feel like doing that is, if Blizzard does that, even if it doesn't work out 100% because they don't have feet, so they can't wear boots or whatever it is, I think that the player base would be forgiving with that just because playable Nagas is so hype, and I don't know how they would implement it, but I feel like it would be a strong move because Blizzard has tended to recently in WoW make fan favorite decisions, bringing back Illidan, that kind of thing. Uh, I could see Naga being playable despite the limitations.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what they do. I would play as a Naga just because there's so much underwater stuff I want to explore. I honestly believe that the Murlocs are up to something weird. There's something not right about the Murlocs, people. Anyway,
Oh, there's something not right about the ocean as a whole. I mean, you think about it, the ocean in World of Warcraft or Warcraft in general never has somebody in a mission in Warcraft or in WoW, never have you gone out in the ocean and been like, let's have a cheery little ride across the ocean and nothing bad happens. Like there's always a kraken, or you get shipwrecked, or the maelstrom breaks all your ships, or you get attacked by Naga. Like it always happens. The oceans are not safe, people.
yeah, for sure. But like, oh man, everything wrong. But like, if they start like trying to people please more, and they really want to draw an audience back in, like maybe that's just the Blizz team kind of going, all right, we've been setting up some of this stuff for years. We have been, we've been planting these pearls everywhere that are like making people go crazy, and like there's all these hints, and we have the crazy children in
Goldshire.
yeah, Goldshire, and like all this other weird stuff. Like they've been setting this up for a long time. Like if I was a Blizz dev, I would want to give the people what they wanted to bring them back to the game. So at least some of my earlier, people that I gave this content to, at least they could come back and see the conclusion to a lot of that.
Yeah, I
Cause
agree.
like,
And I don't have a lot to say about this, but ogres, I mean, I play Horde exclusively. I don't want to play an ogre. I don't want to have an ogre alt. I know that that's probably unpopular with some people that are like, no, I need to play ogres. I would play a Mach Nathal, but that's basically an orc. I just don't want to play an ogre. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, part of me would want to play an ogre just to like relive, them being like a unit in like Warcraft 2, you know. Which I'm still kind of salty that we have dark spear trolls and not forest trolls, because I think forest trolls are way cooler. um, you
Hey
know,
man.
yes, like I love those trolls, and like I kept waiting for them to be like a subclass or something. Like maybe eventually we'll get to be forest trolls. Um, and like the same thing. I think the Tonka are way cooler than Tauren, but whatever. Um, so yeah, like being like an ogre, because they were kind of cool to bring out a bunch of ogres, and they had the cool bloodlust sound when you used them, and the mines and different things that they had. But I'd probably get bored of it, pretty quickly.
Yeah, I I don't think I would stay on an ogre or really be into an ogre. But are there any classes, or not classes, but races that you would like to see brought in, either not currently in the game or um, like NPC races?
Um, that's kind of hard for me. I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about it, because really when I get asked a question like that, I think of like dumb things like, kind of, but what I really wish would happen is I just wish that X was a more, compelling race to deal with or whatever. Like, I just want like the race fantasy to be flushed out better. Whether it's like the trolls or whatever. I just want. It's hard for me to find the words.
No, I think you said it near the beginning of the video. You said you just really wanted classes or races that you could be more specific things, and
Yeah,
I think that that's you know a good sentiment.
yeah, because like that's one of the things that the beginning of WoW. nailed. And I think we all appreciate it enough that people will shit all over WoW for some of them good reasons, some of them not so good reasons. We'll pick our different things to nitpick WoW on, but something I've never heard anybody critique WoW on is in the beginning days the race fantasy, the starting zones of the different races. Like they they really create like a culture around each of them. You know that the night elves feel completely different than like the undead starting zone. Like they did such a good job with that. And
I agree.
I mean I would love to get a little bit of that back. And and yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think we've talked about classes and races a lot. If we're talking about a new expansion, obviously the big thing is okay, who are we fighting, right? And I have a list of people I would like to fight, or villains that are left in the world, because I hear a lot of people say, well, we don't have anyone left to fight. There's if we kill Sargeras, we beat the final bad guy, and then a lot of people say, oh, there's the Void Lords, we could fight them. Uh, See, the Void Lords have the same problem that Sargeras does, but without the name impact, because the Void Lords are a relatively new, to at least the WoW community, villain or idea. I mean, they've always existed, yes, but being brought to the forefront of people's familiarity with them, I feel it would be really weird to just be like, all right, the new big bad villains of Warcraft are the Void Lords. We haven't heard of them, really, but we sort of retconned them to be the big baddies because it used to be Sargeras. We used to think, okay, eventually we're going to fight Sargeras, and it's going to be great, and he's going to be the final villain of WoW. But now with 7.3 and spoilers, the possibility of us defeating Sargeras without actually fighting him is really weird to me. Just sort of imprisoning him, and I know a lot of people say, well, he's just gonna be locked away, and we'll fight him later on down the line, and I guess that's true, but it seems like a redundant story. It seems kind of weak. I would much rather see, something different, something. Give us a villain like Arthas again, somebody that we can look up to and be like, man, I want to fight that guy. Illidan, Deathwing, even, and Deathwing was a relatively obscure character, I think, for the most part in the WoW community. Maybe not the Warcraft universe, but for the WoW community, I think he was a bit more obscure. So, what are your thoughts on like who would you want to fight?
um that's I can only give like a really personal answer, and for me that is oh no, the Nerubians.
Ah, uh, no in particular. I don't think we know any named ones that are left, but yeah, I see what you mean.
Like I the BlizzCon they were doing I think it was like a lore panel or whatever, and Chris Metzen was trying to explain how you should think about the Earth and about how ours is kind of like a crust or something that has like um, developed over the ruins. So like of like what used to be the Black Empire. So like whenever I see black ruins, I kind of like get chills down my spine. It's kind of like, ooh, that's so awesome because like there's a possibility that there is an underground um, all over Azeroth that is just crawling with this subterranean culture or whatever. And I have a thing for insects. I think they're awesome. But but like sometimes when I get bored, I go to Ice Crown Citadel and I drop down the hole underneath it, just like to look at stuff, because like all the glowing cave mushrooms, those old Black Empire buildings and stuff. Oh, I would love to like explore that, and like I would love going through zones. Like I love Deep Home. It's just everything about that is it's so cool.
No, I agree. That's you've touched on a couple of the things I wanted to talk about, but firstly and foremostly, I think for a lot of players, we want to fight Queen Najara. We've heard about her enough. She's been a big character in the lore, dating back to literally the War of the Ancients. We're ready to fight her. I think it's we've had enough time waiting and enough of her time biding her time. We want to fight Queen Najara.
Yeah, and like for me, it's not. I'm a little bit different because I like personally, I just don't spend a lot of time investing in like night elf lore. Like from I don't know, and I know I'm missing out on like a huge part of Warcraft lore, right?
bunch of bunch of tree hugging
Bunch
alliances.
of tree huggers, but like but me, I almost wanted to just get her out of the way. Like I've heard about her so much, I just kind of want to be like, yeah, whatever. You wanted to date Sargeras anyway, and then it's like, I like, will it take a whole expansion to finally stop hearing about Queen Ajara? Fine, because I mean I could understand a decent part of an expansion being devoted to killing off what is essentially like a huge part for the night elf race. That's I mean that's kind of a big deal.
hmm No,
Um,
and I think there's a lot of story closure that we can have there with her.
yeah, it'd be nice to maybe get an appreciation for everything that's going on there with the Naga, because I, I'm guessing she is a Naga at this point. She just doesn't choose to present herself as one,
I
which is kind
think
of weird.
yeah, I think she's a Naga. I think we have that confirmed, but I do think that she is sort of more powerful than your average Naga. And this is pure speculation on my part, but I think that she has the ability to sort of choose which form she wants to show off, sort of like oh, I'm in my weak night elfin form, but really, if I wanted to go full on Queen Ajara, I would turn into, Medusa, Lady Vosh, sort of, you know, uh, Serpent Shrine Cavern esque.
Oh yeah,
But I mean, I think we can agree she's the smaller picture, even though lore wise she's a great character and we want to fight her. But behind her you have N'Zoth and the old gods as a whole. I think really behind that, and I think that could be the core of the next expansion. Um, I, I don't know if you want to go down like a full bore. We're fighting old gods. That's sort of the expansion. I almost feel stronger to fight smaller threats, just with the old gods being one of them. And not to say that the old gods are a small threat by any means, but sort of we could fight them. We could fight the trolls because they're off doing their thing in the South Seas. Blood Cell Buccaneers. We could fight some pirates. It could be just a bunch of other things, sort of us reclaiming Azeroth, if you will, trying to prepare the way for the Titan that is Azeroth. And I don't know necessarily, but I think that they could be a major player in that, but not necessarily like the Deathwing or the Lich King of the expansion.
yeah, because I don't know, because you keep kind of talking about um, the enemies we're gonna fight, how we're gonna balance this out or whatever. But I I do have a sense that in order for the game to continue for me in an interesting way, which other people might have other opinions, I think we need to be effectively like dethroned. We
I agree.
we kind of need
We
not
need to get beat.
we need to get beat and not so much like knocked down a peg and put in our and put in our place, but just we kind of need to realize we have not been succeeding in the fight against the old gods. And you could argue that even though we quote unquote won in air quotes against Cthulhu and the other old gods, well, we've seen what hurting them does. And there's a chance that us killing them or maiming them only allowed them to poison Azeroth further. So there's potentially some really dark things there, which would be great.
Yeah, I would love to fight the other old gods, and I'll only touch on them for a moment, but I would love to fight them at their full power because I think we've gotten more powerful. And I know that sounds crazy because the Titans could barely contain them um, with the power that the Titans had combined, and they had to do all this kind of crazy stuff during
I
the Black Empire.
I know,
But
right?
what I would respond to that is, well, we're fighting the Pantheon. Like they're no big deal. We're gonna fight the world soul of Argus. That's water off our backs, right? We can fight old gods at their full power.
Right, which is like I definitely think we can fight them because technically we fought them before, and now we're stronger, so we can take on their more powerful forms. But
We,
the
they
biggest problem is that we can't kill them.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as containing them goes, the Titans literally built entire cities on top of these things. And that's not even effective because like keeping them in Azeroth is just keeping them closer to the world soul. Like honestly, like if I got the chance to talk one-on-one with a Titan, I'd be like, "What were you thinking?" Because you're trying to look out for, and I honestly think this is like a WoW, like a lore over, they overlooked this and they're trying to retcon things and make it make sense. But like, you're trying to protect the world soul of Azeroth, but yet you're enslaving these creatures under the surface of Azeroth,
Well,
which
time for a little lore time with Indy. That way the comment section doesn't turn into, bruh, this is obviously why they did it. But the Titans did try and kill them outright. If you remember Yasiraj in Pandaria, Amanthul literally just came down from the sky and like picked him up and just ripped him out of the earth. But that caused such a it hurt Azeroth's world soul so much that if they did that again, with three other old gods, it would have literally killed Azeroth. So they couldn't. They realized that they could not kill the old gods because in doing so it would wound the planet to the point where Azeroth would die. So that's sort of the reason that they chose to imprison it, and they empowered the keepers and the dragons to keep watch over them, and they did everything that they could because killing them was not an option. And I know this is
oh
sort of like a lore interlude, but I want to save you from the comment section.
well wait no okay so something in with you saying that made something now makes sense to me, right? Because yeah, because he reached down and he like ripped it out. I mean, that's like taking like a wart on your skin or something and trying to rip it out. Like it hurts. So so maybe the problem wasn't that the old god was killed, because yeah, their blood is bad. Yeah, they released a Shaw, but maybe the problem was how he killed it. So maybe if they can get us to do it as more of a surgical
Yep.
operation,
Pokey pokey, firebally.
yeah, because then the Titans they're just too big. They can't go underneath, underneath Azeroth's skin like we can and like kill off an old god.
So
So
it's
hey, that actually makes us relevant.
so it's not so much a um, power level esque spike sort of thing. It's more like, well, logistically we can't kill them because we're too big and we do too much damage to the planet.
That's oh, you know what? I kind of that that makes me feel good about the lore. I kind of hope there's a little bit of that in the next expansion because that kind of makes it make sense a little bit.
Yeah. Well, so we have the old gods. N'Zoth being the main focus because we haven't actually faced off against N'Zoth before, and I think that could be a really cool uh, not only villain with N'Zoth, but a cool encounter because he's known as the Corruptor. Maybe we could have some sort of mind control encounter where we have to fight against each other and sort of cleanse each other and that sort of raid mechanics type things. I think that could be really fun flavor wise. But as far
Ooh.
as like lore goes with N'Zoth, I mean we've briefly talked about before this video. We talked about N'Zoth's prison and where he's located, and hopefully I can get a infographic up at this point that a little map to show like the pre-sundered Azeroth. Um, N'Zoth's prison is basically somewhere in the Bermuda Triangle of Vashir's location, the Broken Shore, and Gilnea's / Lordaeron area. Somewhere in that area of sea is where we assume N'Zoth's prison was based on old maps, which is really interesting because if you think of locations near there, you have the Broken Shore, which has that in the Tomb of Sargeras, it has that Titan underground area where you fight the fallen Avatar, and that's sort of interesting. A lot of players say, "Well, what was that?" It was built under the Temple of Elune, or the Temple of Elune was built on top of it. What's going on there? And I think that's a good question, and I want to know more. Give me some answers, Blizzard. But we also have Vashir, which is clearly old god infested sort of area. We had the whole Naga quest line. If you haven't done it, do it. I know a lot of people hate it, but you're wrong. Other people, I want more underwater zones. um, You have Gilneas, which to me, Gilneas, if you've actually been there, if you've done the Borgen starting zone or even flown over it, it's a total Lovecraftian city, and I would love if we got Gilneas as a zone, if we could go back there and sort of have this Lovecraftian story in Gilneas, because I think the setting works perfectly for that. I would love to have this sort of uh, you know Call of Cthulhu esque style story where we're going into cities and we're trying to find out clues and there's odd things happening and weird faceless showing up, and I think it'd be a really cool questing zone. So Blizzard, get on that. um, but you have that area. You have the undead, which are in and of themselves sort of horror movie esque, with zombies and Gilneas, which is werewolves. But you have that whole area that sort of fits of why it's so creepy. Because Nazoth's prison could technically be somewhere there according to maps. So I would love to see areas over there, and we'll get further along into the areas that we would want to go to. But Kilter Ross, in an interview, a dev at Blizzard basically said Kilter Ross used to be where Vashir is, but because of the cataclysm, the tectonic plates shifted, and Kilter Ross went out to sea and is further out, which is sort of in the middle of that Bermuda Triangle. So maybe Kilter Ross is a location that Nizas prison is now directly, above, and so maybe we could go to Kilter Ross and sort of have that Lovecraftian um, story that I was telling you about, and some other lore things we'll get into in a bit with Jaina. But you could totally see, while Kilter Ross being this sort of corrupted area that we had to, go on an inquisition, if you will, or uh, this Lovecraftian mystery story in that area. Sorry, I've gone on for a long time, but that's one of my ideas with N'Zoth. I really like him as a villain. I really like the whole Cthulhu mythos, and I would love to see that come into WoW in the form of N'Zoth and sort of that Kilteros Gilneas area.
Yeah.
Um, Other villains, though, we could talk about. I mentioned briefly the trolls, so just another quick lore thing. The Prophet Zul, the Dark Prophet, he was responsible for, if you remember, during Cataclysm, there were the dungeons with the trolls Zulaman and Zul'Gurub. He was responsible for that meeting and bringing all the trolls together. Uh, so maybe we could see him as a more central villain, or at least a quest line villain, maybe a dungeon villain. But he actually foresaw the Cataclysm. He warned Rakistan, the king of Zandalar, of the trolls. He basically said, "Hey, the Cataclysm's coming. We need to move." And he's like, "No." And he's like, "Hey, the Cataclysm's coming. We need to get out of here." And he's like, "Nah. Hey, the Cataclysm is literally here. Our island is sinking." And King Rakistan was like, "Okay, have a couple ships. Go figure this out." So it would be nice to see him. He's known as the Dark Prophet. I think that could fit really well into a old gods sort of expansion with the South Seas, um, these just various islands that we have to travel to. But I could see the trolls re-entering WoW. We haven't heard from them in a long time.
Yeah, and they could. Ooh, like if we're gonna deal with old gods, like they were there for that shit. Weren't the trolls really one of the only current races that were there for the Black Empire?
I don't know if they date back that far, but I do know that the trolls of the current races, at least civilized races, quote unquote civilized, the trolls were one of the oldest races on Azeroth. So I don't know. I don't think they date as far back to the Black Empire, but they do date back quite a long ways. Um, so it would be interesting maybe to see that. I mean, that more lore developed there. King Rakistan, obviously, Rakist. I don't know how to pronounce that, but he would be another cool villain. He's sort of a god king, and I'm I love my god kings. God King Scovold, he's my man. I could I could do always do with more god kings, and if it's a troll, even better.
Wow. Hmm.
So we talked briefly about the Void Lords. I think that they could be something to do with it. I'm not really stoked about them because I don't know about them really. Um, they're just kind of there. It's kind of like, oh no, the boogeyman. They're bad. All right, next. Um,
Yeah, because
but
like part of me goes, I mean, it took us 12 years to build up to, or something like 12 years to build up to Sargeras. You know, so okay, all right, I'll see a Void Lord in 12 years from now, and I guess we'll fight one. Like, I mean, I'm not saying that they couldn't be an interesting threat or whatever, but like the experience I've had with Blizzard as a company has kind of like told myself, or like my experiencing self, to kind of be like, yeah, don't worry about it. No, I don't. When Blizzard comes out and shows me that Void Lords are like a priority and we're going to be fighting them, then I'll start paying attention. Until then, I'm not going to waste my energy because WoW's almost hard enough to keep up, lore wise. And I still need to buy both of the Chronicle books, and I'm gonna buy them sometime.
um, well, we have all those villains, and I think they'd be great. A less talked about villain because he's not a villain. I would actually like to see in the expansion, and Blizzard has actually talked about vaguely. Is actually Norse Damu, the leader of the Bronze Dragonflight.
See, I think this might be the most likely thing that we've talked about because the whole Death of Chromie campaign scenario thing is big. Like, and you mentioned it before, there was an interview where someone was like, yeah, Dragon's going to be a huge part of the next expansion, and that's almost enough for me to make me believe that um, we might not get an Old God expansion. We might not get a Naga expansion. We might get a Dragon expansion that ties in with those other elements.
And like I was saying, kind of like smaller threats. I almost would like to see this because Norstamu has been absent for a while, and we know that he has to deal with keeping the time ways safe, and he's got a bigger picture thing. But in the Death of Chromie, he's not there, and he is the leader of the Bronze Dragonflight, which is interesting to me because you have Alexstrasza there, you have Lord Atharius, who presumably is the new leader. I don't think it's been officially stated in our timeline. Um, but with Ysira being dead, uh, he would be the next logical leader. If you say that this happened X amount of years past Legion, um, there's no Rathion. Sort of is the Black Dragon fight leader, and we see him in the Death of Chromie. I mean, when I say leader, he makes the most sense as the next successor. The Black Dragonflight is sort of it's in a bad place right now. Uh, but you have Caligos, he's there as the blue. So it's very interesting that Nostamu was missing, and we had Chromie as the sort of representative of the Bronze Dragonflight. Um, and I think going along with the idea, and I've talked with you about this before, but I'll talk about it again for everybody that's listening. Um, the dragons have been systematically being killed. If you think back to as far as Wrath of the Lich King, we killed Malagos, which is actually a big deal that I feel like we've oversighted as a gaming community. Um, but we killed the Blue Dragonflight leader because he was consumed with magic in the Mana Wars. Uh, Interestingly enough, is the Void was actually a big part of his corruption, which, as we know, the Void is what begat the old gods, and the old gods are here to destroy Azeroth, and Azeroth was supposed to be defended by the Dragonflights. So there's a loose connection there where you could say, okay, well maybe that could be all together. But then as you look further into it, you have Deathwing, who was also a dragon aspect, who was killed because of old gods. You have Alexstrasza, whose life was attempted to be killed many times. We've defended her thus far, but she's sort of the if I can take some liberties here, I think she's more of the main character, if you will, of the Dragonflights. Ysira has been defeated by Xavius, who is also a servant of the old gods, and you have that sort of another dragon taken down. Um, and we know Noristamu eventually turns into Morizond. I don't know how to pronounce that, but the Infinite Dragonflight leader, which uh, could have ties as well to the Void and to the Old Gods. We just don't know yet. Maybe we do. I'm a little rusty on that lore, but there are definitely ties to the Void and the Old Gods. So it's interesting that maybe we will see Noristamu become a villain. Maybe he fulfills his destiny of eventually becoming the Infinite Dragonflight leader.
Yeah, because we never got to see the conclusion, and we know the conclusion he's reaching towards, but we didn't see his transformation.
Right, and it's unclear if that was only if Deathwing plan succeeded and that was that timeline, or if it's an inevitability that he will eventually become the Infinite Dragonflight leader. I don't think we know. I think it's more speculation, and I'd be interested to see that. And if we did fight him as a villain and we had to do some more time walking, not like the raids or anything, but we got to do some older dungeons that were revamped with infinite dragonflights and maybe saved a couple more time ways because of his story coming to fruition. I would love that. I'm always a big fan of the dragons, and I think it would be interesting to see more of that.
Yeah, there's so many directions that Blizzard could take there with dragonflights from other planets maybe. I mean, we've seen we've seen fell everything. We've seen fell murlocs, we've seen fell tauren or whatever. We haven't seen any fell dragons yet.
That's true,
And
uh, for the
that's
most part, I
really
think.
interesting.
So let's talk locations. I have a list of locations, and maybe you can think of some more. But if we're going down this South Seas sort of vibe, which again this could all be wrong, but I think it's a highly likely probability. Kilturas is obviously one of the first areas that we would talk about because we already have that's been data mined the Kilturas questing zone gear, which leads towards old gods because of the tentacles in the Kilturas map. Don't know about that, but Kilturas, I think we've talked about a little bit, but I think we can agree Kilturas will be in some way connected to the next expansion.
I I think it's going to be a big part of it. I mean, or at least it could be because I think we're going to see um, the potential unlocked for all these things we've been working on for like the garrison system, the maybe some of this of the unit control stuff in that one zone. Like I think we're gonna see a lot of that, but I can talk about more of that later.
No, it's fine. I really would like to see in Kilturas the storyline develop with Jaina, and I'm torn because I don't know if I want Jaina to be a villain. As awful as she has been lately with the decisions that she's made, and this is coming from the perspective of a Horde player, so sorry to all those Alliance players out there, but from the perspective of a Horde player, she used to be that link that kept sort of the Horde and Alliance, uh, the peace alive, the chance that we could one day have peace, and she's flipped on that completely. Now she just wants to kill the Horde, and maybe for good reason. I could see that, but I don't know if I want to fight her as a full fledged villain. I would maybe like to have sort of a conflict with her where maybe she can resolve. I would love to see a redemption story that didn't have to do with I just became the most evil villain of all time, but now I'm a good guy again. Like if we could stop her from going down that road, I would love to
Yeah,
see that kind of story.
that'd be interesting because we've had quite a few redemption stories in WoW.
No,
Kind of takes the punch out of things. It seems like nothing ever really dies anymore.
if there's one thing about WoW that I know, it's that all the bad guys will eventually become good guys, and all the good guys will eventually become bad guys.
Gosh, yeah, right, and like yeah, um,
But we've talked a lot about Kilturas. We briefly spoke about Zandalar. Um, so the Troll Islands, which we know is sinking into the ocean, but because of the way that WoW's tectonic plates apparently work, that doesn't matter anymore. If they just need an island to just come out of the mists, that's fine. It happened.
yeah,
So so I think that we could see, a troll area, and I'm okay with that. A tropical troll island. Tropical islands in general, I really like that biome. But I would be down to do some troll area questing. I, I'm I'm missing the trolls.
yeah, and they could bring a lot of really interesting and relevant stuff when it comes to the old gods and stuff. But yeah, I mean, a bunch of islands tied together that wouldn't be That wouldn't be too bad. That could be an opportunity for WoW to kind of fix its scaling problem because the problem with Warcraft, like I'm talking like Warcraft, from orcs versus humans to the Frozen Throne, is the sense of scale. You go back and you read the books, Tides of Darkness, it's supposed to be a 3-day march to get through a part of, the Arathi Highlands. Everything is so thrown off. Like, that was the most exciting part of me for watching the Warcraft movie, is because you finally got to get a sense of how big the world is. You got to see Stormwind and such, and you're like, oh, okay, this is what it's supposed to look like. So like it'd be interesting for them to take the opportunity to create this big nowhere zone of tiny islands and give you, I don't know, some surface boat or whatever you know that was a bit bigger, that honestly had the scale that it should, to be a little bit more immersive, because we have flying down, we have portals down. If you really want to fast travel, you can fast travel, but if you happen to take a boat from point A to point B, it would be really nice for that to feel like a journey. God, I would love that. So taking advantage of like the big vastness of the ocean without having to like physically go in and like make locations farther apart from each other, which would like be a big dream come true for me, is just to kind of spread things out a little bit on the map. But that's never going to happen. But um, but that'd be great. And then just kind of keep Keltaros or whatever as like a central hub or whatever, because um I want to say, oh, what I think would be, but like what I envision WoW doing and what Blizzard ends up doing at the end of the day are like so different, right? But I think it'd be smart, or like I think it'd be cool, and I'd really enjoy it if we didn't end up with another Cataclysm, so to say. The old world, it's frozen in the Cataclysm. Okay. But that frees them up from going back and, I guess, doing things and changing things again or whatever, and really having to rewrite a lot of material. Because, yeah, they can go in there and they can physically, okay, the lava's gone, they've built bridges over northern and southern barrens now, okay. They can put all that stuff in, but then rewriting the stuff so that way people doing the questing and playing through Cataclysm, it would still make sense for them. That kind of sounds like a nightmare.
Well,
Uh,
yeah, and I don't think that we have that. I mean, when you think about playing WoW, when's the last time you went and quested, like leveling up a character?
I know, right? It's all dead. Speaking of,
And
all these pirates are dead. Why are all these pirates dead?
you know, but even new players that I've talked to and have gotten into the game, they do a couple questing zones at the beginning, and then they find the dungeon finder and go, "Well, this is easier. I'm just going to use this." Which, for better or worse, okay, that's I guess how you level now. Much different leveling experience than I did when I played the game, and honestly, I think it's for the worse. I liked that dungeons were sort of this really nice thing that you got to do once in a while. It was like, oh man, we're going into a dungeon. This is going to be big.
Oh
Um,
yeah, it was.
but you really explored the world, and I mean, we've been flying around this continent, and I mean, it's just exploring the vastness of it is great, and I would love to see that sort of like you said in with boats and stuff across islands. But I don't necessarily hate the idea of them revamping some old world stuff, like I said, Gilneas, and sort of turning it into a Lovecraftian quest hub area, and you have the phase technology, so you don't have to mess it up for new players or whatever. But I would love to see a couple key areas that make sense to the story sort of get instanced quest hubs and stuff, and it wouldn't necessarily have to be tied to, all right, you can only quest in the couple new zones that we create on the islands. We can still have that, and they can still be spread out like Cataclysm was, but with the new leveling technology, with the fact that we can go anywhere that we want to as a questing hub, I would love to see that come into play, and then subsequently bring that into the old world, because the old world has so much content that we just don't use. I mean, when you play the game, you basically stay in the Broken Shore currently,
Yeah.
unless you're weird and you fly around the old world like we do. But
Yeah. So like I don't know. I could have some things to say about it. Most of it revolves around, well, if you're going to do anything with the old world, it's going to be you're sending out your champions or your followers to go do missions on it. You know, but
I mean,
I
that works, but I would love to actually physically have to come back out here.
right. But so but like, and I agree with that. But I think the more interesting question that we could talk about is, are we ready to leave Azeroth? Azeroth won't be destroyed. But I mean, it's not super crazy. I mean, we went to Outland. We've been to other planets, but us getting access to the webway or whatever you want to call it that the Legion has opens up like infinite possibilities for going to other planets, finding like what if our grand quest in WoW now becomes to find other world souls, and those world souls are going to have crazy and interesting life on it. Um, so I
Well,
mean,
doesn't that just turn us into the opposite of the Burning Crusade?
we join Tyrion and his army of light.
Yeah, I mean, and to some worlds, to the Void at least, you know, you've got to think that the Void have settled some worlds, and there's some civilization there that's not just, oh, to come kill us. If we go to those worlds and we say, oh, there's a Titan soul in there, like, we need to fight for this world and save it. Well, if we're killing off civilizations that have lived there for millennia, doesn't that sort of turn us into the Burning Legion?
I mean, if they don't align themselves with us willingly, I guess so, but I mean, if we show up to these other planets and we're the army of the light and we are here to free you, and or something, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's doable.
I don't know. That sounds a lot like what Sargeras was planning with the Legion.
I know, and I'm still confused by that because I mean, I grew up with Sargeras being a bad guy, and now he's a tragic and misunderstood hero, and I don't get it.
I don't think he's misunderstood. I think he's misguided and he's wrong.
Yeah,
But
so like, can we like try to? Because like I've been trying to break this down. So let's say that Azeroth is a sandwich, okay?
oh boy,
Sargeras wants to throw the sandwich in the trash. We want to enjoy the sandwich, and the Void Lords want to make the sandwich disappear from the face of existence like it never existed. Like, what's the proper analogy here? What does
okay,
everyone want to do with the sandwich?
okay. So Azeroth's the sandwich. Okay, we just want to be on the sandwich. You know, we just want to be happy living on the sandwich.
No mold, no weird fungus, no undead shit.
No, just being on our sandwich, just happy. The Titans sort of want us to have have that sandwich be cultivated, and then one day, I don't know, become a sandwich god, I guess is the best way to put it. They just want it to become something amazing, you know. And I don't know if that affects us in any way, but that's what the Titans want. The Void recognizes that Azeroth, the sandwich, is a really good sandwich. It's probably the best sandwich that's in the Twisting Nether. So the Void has decided, well, we're going to go to that sandwich and we're going to make that sandwich super evil, and that because the sandwich is super powerful, and then that sandwich, I don't know, goes and destroys all the other sandwiches. I'm losing it here with the analogy, but essentially the Void is just kind of the epitome of chaos, so they just want to destroy everything. Sargeras realized, okay, the Void wants to go and corrupt this super strong sandwich. Well, if I allow that to happen, if the sandwich were to be corrupted, nothing could stop that sandwich. That sandwich would have like a 24 pack. It would have like bristling abs. It would have like guns the size of, I don't know, the entire planet. Like, it would just be super strong. And so Sargeras was like, "Nah, we can't have that." So he decided, well, I just got to destroy the sandwich, because if you can't do something nice with the sandwich, nobody gets the sandwich. So he's trying to destroy the sandwich because he realizes that were it to be corrupted, it would end everything. And so that's sort of his mentality of it, which isn't necessarily what the Titans thought. The Titans said, well, we're going to go to Azeroth and we're going to do our best to fight the corruption. And they did the best that they could, and they did what they could to contain it. And I guess you could question if the Titans' judgment was right there. But at the end of the day, as denizens of Azeroth, we just want to live on our sandwich. And so everybody that keeps messing with it needs to just stop. Is that is that a is that too meta? Are we have I lost you?
No, no, I think is. I mean, I think we have a lot to find out because I think, and I don't know, for me, getting that analogy right is going to be like an ongoing process because um, the Void Lords, they're interesting and they're kind of dumb in their current state right now because This is the same thing that we thought we understood in like back in Cataclysm. Deathwing was like this character, you know, doomed to the world, and like I remember having discussions with people. It's like, how boring is it to have a villain who just wants to destroy everything? Like, what do you have after you have destroyed everything? You have a Baron Azeroth with no life. Okay, what do you want? Okay, so we found out a little bit more about Deathwing. We found out what was the root of his madness, and it really wasn't just about him wanting to destroy all life on Azeroth. Well, now the Doom Lords have the same quote unquote problem. They're just these beings that want, absolute, it's a zero sum game for them, and they want absolutely nothing in Azeroth. And if we assume that, they're a very boring and dull villain. Okay, the biggest evil in the entire multi universes of World of Warcraft, or Warcraft as an entire franchise, is these dark beings that are the Void Lords, and they just want to see everything gone. Apparently, they might eat things in order to go up in power or whatever, which I guess would make them like the Reapers or something. But it's not intelligent. They're not conquering. They're just everything's going. Well, it's just I don't know. For me, that's a very weak kind of villain.
Yeah, and I don't want to see that. I think that it's fine to have certain small things like that, but I think it should be serving a greater narrative.
Yeah.
Um,
So
and
hopefully we
and
learn more.
I was just gonna say I really liked what they did with Deathwing, and particularly what they did with Garrosh, because um, there was that all-consuming void aspect of things, but it really served his purpose and his narrative, and he was a villain in his own right, and he wasn't corrupted or anything like that. He was his own villain, and I really enjoyed that arc.
Yeah, and that's interesting because like you I think we got a glimpse of what the old gods want. This war, mountains of skulls, rivers of blood, and at least that's interesting. You know,
Well, mountains of skulls and rivers of blood sounds like the Black Empire.
yeah, and that kind of sounds cool to me. That but like I don't know, hopefully Blizzard will like shed more light on the Void Lords, and hopefully they're not that dull where they're just kind of like, yeah, we want nothing. Like the Void Lords are like a really irritated neighbor who's like sick of putting up with everyone else's noise, and they're just like, shut up, God, fine, I'm just gonna get rid of all of you. Like delete System 32, the whole universe. That way they can get some peace and quiet or something, and I guess float around in nothingness as they like to do. Kind of,
Well, there's a couple more islands that I want to talk about. If we're talking South Seas, one of them is Kazan, the Goblin home city.
ah,
Would you like to go back there?
I I think it's much more likely that we will be in that area. Because I think there's a possibility, and when I say this knowing I'm absolutely wrong, but there's a possibility that Inzoth is somewhere near the Maelstrom, or at least there's a certain conspiracy that he is, because one of the lines that you get told is to find him, drown yourself in the circle of stars.
Oh, you're talking about Il'gynoth?
Yeah, and someone pointed out somewhere that if you're in Deep Home and you look up, or if you're in the Shaman class hall and you look up, in like the center of the sky is like this weird tentacle star thing or whatever, and some people have gone, oh hey look, that's N'Zoth. He's just chilling out in the heart of Azeroth, and I mean it sounds a little bit too straightforward to be true, but there is something weird going on in the sky there. But it wouldn't surprise me if he was somewhere near the heart of Azeroth, because it's kind of like if you get like a bad infection in like the old wives' tale, or maybe it's true, I don't know. But like if you get like an infected something and a red streak starts going towards your heart, that's when you are supposed to immediately go to the hospital. Maybe that's kind of what Inzoth is like at this point. He's this infection and he's worming his way towards the heart of uh, of Azeroth, which kind of makes me want to level up my shaman and kind of pay attention to the class hall quests, because maybe there's some more stuff in there about it.
Yeah. Well, I think we've talked a lot about that. Oh, sorry, there was a car that just went past. Um, we've talked a lot about that, and then the islands. One of the islands that I wanted to talk about just briefly, because we don't know a lot about it, is the Dragon Islands. Have you heard about the Dragon Isles?
No, literally the first time I've heard about it, like ever.
It's interesting because the only concept art we have of it is basically this tropical-looking island with a sort of like uh, illithid creature skeleton just on the island.
Oh, wait a
Uh,
second. Is this supposed to be the one with the giant snail body or something?
yes, this is the one
Oh
I'm
my
talking about.
god. Oh my god, really? Okay, I've been looking at that piece. I have like one of the old like Warcraft art books and it's in there and it's always bothered me that I've never seen it.
Well, do you want to hear about the Dragon Isles and the history that we know?
Yeah, yeah, tell me everything. I'm actually going to dig through my bookshelf cuz I want to look at the picture.
We don't know anything about it. That's we know that in the original game of World of Warcraft, the Dragon Isles was supposed to be a raid, and it was located just northeast, northwest, or northish of Lordaeron. And we know that it may have included Naga. So if we're talking Old Gods and South Seas expansion, that would be perfect. But yeah, it was supposed to be a, a Naga area, but it was supposed to be a raid included with the base game. It was cut, obviously, but you can actually see it in certain BlizzCon panels of like old vanilla WoW, where they're talking about the expansions and you know what they're expecting to do in vanilla. The Dragon Isles was supposed to be a place that you go, and if we're talking about Norsdamu and the dragon aspects, I don't know. I would assume that the Dragon Isles are named after the dragons for some reason. But we can have Naga there. I don't know anything about it, but you got old gods. You got that sort of snail looking thing. You've got Naga. You've got dragons. To me, that sounds like a cool place.
Yeah, and it's here it is, man. It's on I wish I could show it. It's on page 140 of like the first World of Warcraft art book that they sent out and it is a city built on and carved into the what appears to be a skeleton of a giant snail creature embedded into the crust of the earth, but it still has intact eyes. So it might not be a skeleton, but it's covered in moss and growth. And I mean, it's always been such an interesting piece of like environmental art. It always struck me that it wasn't used. I mean, for this to finally be brought to the forefront of WoW after it's been stuck in the minds of the devs for who knows how long, oh my god, that'd be a dream come true for me. I mean, I've looked at this thing and I've like wondered about it and I've come back to the game and I've been like, at some point I kind of assumed that it was somewhere out there. I just oh I wasn't in the right place. I didn't do the right quest line. Whatever. It's probably on some beach somewhere and it's probably a terrible version of it. But no, it's out there somewhere. And it's funny because like on the next page, there's like a Vicruel warship, and there's like no way that like anybody would know what that is when this book was published. Like no one would look at that and be like, oh yeah, that's a Vicruel warship. But like it would be like another 4 years before we would have any idea what this ship was. So I mean, who knows how far ahead they were thinking with this stuff.
Yeah, I would love to see more about that, and because we know so little about it, um, okay, now I want to get into some more speculation, patchy-esque style places, because I'm really stoked about these. Um, First, I want to mention the Throne of Tides was another raid that was cut in Cataclysm. It was supposed to be underwater, but they scrapped it for reasons because I guess they didn't like the underwater aspect of it.
Yeah, like their own community beat them to death over it. I mean, it was just, which is a shame. I liked it, but
Yeah, I would like to see maybe a zone around the Throne of Tides or a raid or something there. As controversial as that is, I would like to have, if we're going to do a South Seas, I would like at least one underwater area, if not smaller underwater areas, like one part of Vashir instead of the whole zone. Just give us a tiny area and maybe spread 3 zones like that out across the world. Because I think the underwater vibe is really cool, especially when you're talking about old gods and stuff. So briefly touch on that. But then what I think they could do with some patches, or if not part of the base game, um, I would actually like to see Azul Nerub as a full on questing zone.
Oh wow, I would. I just would never leave the questing zone. Like,
I would I would love it. And part of the storyline I would like to see is the old gods that we defeated, but we didn't really defeat, coming back to the front, and maybe we have to fight Yogg Saron again in like an Onyxia style raid where it's just Yogg Saron. Um, I would like to fight Cthulhu again, and more on that in a bit. But just Azul Nerub as a zone, if we could go down there into the subterranean and maybe have a quest area, or even if it was just like a raid, I would love to go to Azul Nerub again and see that underground architecture.
yeah, because there's, I mean, apparently it's there and it's intact, and I mean, and I think that would be a great way to dethrone us because I know it is kind of like mole people coming from under the earth, but I mean, for like for for us to kind of find out that everything on the surface of Azeroth doesn't matter. I think that could be a good way to effectively dethrone us from our current position. Like we're really full of ourselves and everything is going on, but like if they tell the story right, like it's so easy to get wrong because like otherwise it's we're opening up to seal the earth, we go out there and kick ass just like every other time. But like if they get the tone right, where they're like, hey, and when we're actually impressed with like, you know, not okay, because like the way like the Iron Horde from Warlords of Draenor, which was supposed to be a false flag, they weren't the real enemy, but like you didn't know that until a certain point, like till a certain
Hmm.
patch, and you could really okay, yeah, the Iron Horde doesn't matter. But like when you were going in there, it kind of felt like a letdown. Like, oh, Iron Horde, you guys suck. I can't believe we went back in time to fight these things. So kind of nervous, but
I would love to see, like you're saying, an Azul Nerub, and to see us go down there, like you said, catch us off guard, maybe fight. It would also make sense within the lore, maybe before the Titan Azeroth can awaken, we have to basically cleanse the earth, and that could be maybe there's a infestation down there that we have to go and burn out. I think that could be a cool plot line. Uh, but going along with Agile Nerub, I would love to. We were flying around that earlier, but I would love to turn the old unused Encourage zone and turn it into a questing zone, or revamp it as a raid or something like that, and deal with Cthulhu again.
yeah, because oof.
So sort of the same thing. I just I really like the old gods, and I think if we're gonna do old gods, let's go on. Let's full on do old gods and deal with them once and for all.
Yeah,
Um,
because the Legion, you know, how hopefully when all this can ends, I kind of hope the Legion is a bit done with. I'm ready to leave the Legion behind because they were all throughout Warlords of Draenor. They were a big deal and they fueled all the events there, empowering Gul'dan, all the other great stuff. And then it's the same thing in Legion, and I'm ready for the Legion to kind of be over with.
yeah, I'm done with the green.
Yeah. Um,
Okay, we've talked a lot about like what we could see, and I think we could piece together with what we've just talked about, sort of an expansion, if you will. But let's talk a little bit more about some systems and some little lore tidbits before we wrap up. Uh, Artifact weapons. What's up with them?
I know, right? What's going to take them away from us? Because I think someone's already gone on the record and said or confirmed that we're not taking them with us into the next expansion. And weapons are now dropping in scenarios. No, they're pretty much transmogs, but they're
I
gonna.
don't want I don't want my weapon anymore.
Yeah, yeah, me neither, right? That's a lot of stuff to keep up with and everything, and it's not a system that frees you. It's not like, ooh, I picked this trait and this trait. It's no matter how much WoW or Blizzard tries to like come up with something that allows us to be unique or have different talents than the other guy, there's always going to be a cookie cutter meta, and you're going to get called a noob if you don't pick it, and you're just going to end up maxing everything out anyway. and
Yeah.
until you do max everything out, you're not going to be doing anything competitively. So everything you do pre maxing all of your stuff out doesn't matter because everyone's pushing to like to do the best that they can. So, you know, and no one cares if you go into LFR and you kick ass. It's always going to be, normal, then heroic, and then mythic, and you either dedicate yourself to doing all of that, and to which you're playing at the most mid max thing you ever can, or you admit to yourself that you can't and you go to sleep crying. So,
This is
like,
getting real personal, isn't
nah. But
it?
like, I mean, and then you feel bad because like this is the part that's personal. Is like then you feel bad because like you don't feel like you're actually playing the game, but then when you actually play the game, it goes up to this incredible level that you just like didn't know existed of like min maxing, the certain, the right race and the right, with the right class, with the right trinket, with the right stats and the right gems, and it poof.
I would like to see the artifact weapons done with, and that sort of system repurposed and kind of roped into the talent system. To give a little bit more choice, sort of similar to what the talent system used to be.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
I would like to see basically for each class, and maybe it wouldn't work for each class because the meta shifts and whatnot, but basically 2 to 3 viable builds that do different things. So you can, if you're an arms warrior, you can have that single target build that does crazy single target damage, or you could play a sort of like more crit based build that isn't as quick, but you have a chance to proc really big hits. That would be more viable in, say, like, I don't know, dealing with ads, or like specific ads that you wanted to burst down really quickly or something like that, or maybe the Holy Paladin, where you're specifically a tank healer. You basically spec out of all AoEs and you're really good at healing one target, and have that be a build. Or you could be a more broad Holy Paladin that still sort of has Light of Dawn and heals multiple targets, but isn't as good at just funneling health into that one target. I would just love to see multiple viable builds for each spec.
I know, right? And it's crazy to me because I haven't played, you know, Diablo, but apparently a big part of that game is built, and for Blizzard to have access to that kind of talent and experience with making a game like Diablo, but then to absolutely deny that. Well, okay, I shouldn't say deny, but to have such a hard time incorporating it into WoW. I mean, I would love that. I would love to have a much more personal build, to have a much more personal character, and to be able to go into raids and be like, hey guys, I'm here for this role and this function. This is how I accomplish it, and people be like, okay, great, cool. But I think that's kind of where the past and like the nature of the players right now, it kind of keeps you from doing that because we still have way too many people who only care about the meters and the DPS. And I think it really lends itself to a very uninteresting way to play the game because you have these guys who want to cheese mechanics, at every possible turn because the only thing that they are interested in is being top of the DPS charts. This is your guy who yells at you for a res because you're all just a bunch of scrubs and
I I have something to say on that, but I just want to briefly. Um, I found this guy, and he sort of reminds me of that Dragon Isle uh, work. There is a little bit of lore behind him.
I was staring at it earlier and like I was trying to figure out what it was, but I didn't want to stop you and be like, Indy, what is that thing? Because what is this thing?
So basically, I can't remember who exactly. I think it was a Titan, but basically, this was a old god general that some Titan, I want to say Agrimar, stabbed in the head, and then he just turned to stone here. I don't know the exact lore, but there is lore on this guy, and you actually can do a quest hub, I think, in this area that's in this area. It pertains to him, but we were talking about the Dragon Isles, so I just wanted to come here and sort of show him off because I could see this, but on a much grander scale.
Yeah, because that thing looks interesting. That's cool.
Yeah. So okay, back to what you're talking about. We play in two different worlds because I do a lot of mythic progression and that sort of thing where you have a specific job where, like, for instance, on the kill Jaden encounter, my job is to burst down ads when they come out. That's what I need to do as, and I'm a Fury warrior. It lends itself to the kit, and that's sort of what Fury does. But Fury can sort of play in two pools and go mad single target damage, or you can have really big bursty AOE windows. And so on the Kill Jaden fight, my job is to burst down those ads, and that's specifically a job that's made for me, and that's what I'm supposed to do. Others are just nuking the boss down, trying to push him uh, hit through the DPS phase. But regardless, in our raid group, we all have that sort of this is my job and I'm going to spec this so that I can accomplish this job better. Whereas in the pug world, that doesn't exist so much, and you do have that mentality of I just need to do the best numbers. And if I was in that mentality, oh, you fell off.
Well, I was trying to center my camera.
Um, if you have that mentality, you you tend to lose that sort of team play and that gameplay in it, and that'll always be a thing that you have with pugs, because pugs only care about the meters. You know, there's very rarely you'll find a pug that actually cares about doing the mechanics. Um, and I think that that's two different styles of gameplay, and I think players that are sort of in your mindsets are like, I wish I could just play my thing and do my specific role and stuff. I would urge players like that, like you, and I'm in a guild with you, so you're good. But players that feel like that should find a guild. You know, even if you don't think that you're good enough, just watch some videos, look up some guides, join a guild, and try and find that sort of team play, that sort of identity. Bring up that idea of, okay, how can I help my group the best? What can I do? What as me as a player, what am I good at? Are you really good at your AoE rotation? Then build spec into AoE and say, okay, during this part, I'm going to burst down these ads. This is my job. I'm going to save my cooldowns. And by doing this, I make the fight easier for the rest of my raid. And I think players of that mindset, like you were talking about, that are kind of frustrated with how that pug landscape is, join a guild. Uh, get social with players. Try this out. Try talking to your raid team and saying, how can I help? What can I specifically do? And I think you'll have a much better time with the game, because it stops becoming, okay, which random dude in the group happened to have the best gear and can wave his dick around. But it'll turn more into this team play game and this more strategic gameplay. And yeah, that's all I have to say on that. But yeah, I would urge players to feel like that to go and find a guild.
Hell yeah.
Okay, just to wrap up, artifact weapons. We talked about that. Um, we talked briefly about Jaina, so I don't feel like I need to again. But let's talk about Sylvanas.
I'm
Uh,
kind of lost on Savannah. I don't even.
she's an interesting character. A lot of people are talking about how she may have manipulated Vol'jin into handing her the mantle of war chief. There's some evidence to support this within the new raid. Pheromotheris, who is a boss that we're going to fight on Argus, says, "Oh, did she take the mantle of war chief by force, or did she manipulate you into giving it to her willingly?" I don't know the exact quote, but that's the basic gist of what she says, or he says. And could that be him just messing with us? Maybe he's a dreadlord, but there's a chance that Sylvanas could be manipulating us. What do you think on that?
This is all blindsiding me. And like Sylvanas is one of those characters. It seems like every time I look in her general direction, I'm like, wait, what? And she's like done all of this stuff. It's been so hard for me to keep up with her because I just forget about Undercity sometimes. And
Well,
but
I'll say this now. I'm a huge Sylvanas fan, and I think that there's a large contingent of players that love Sylvanas. That's their favorite WoW character,
I mean,
and I would say that she is among my favorite WoW characters. And I want her to stay a hero, or at least stay a very cool and relevant character. And I don't want her to just go the way of Garrosh and just be another evil war chief that we have to kill off.
yeah, right. And I mean, hopefully not. But I mean, I can see what she. Okay, it's like she has like so much going for her. I can see why people really like her. But like something. something strikes me about her, and that is that like she adapts. You like compare her to Lillian Voss. I mean, she's kind of taken the whole Banshee Queen thing in strides, and like earlier in WoW, I kind of expected her to betray the Horde, find a way to become alive again, or however it is you want to, figure that one out. And, if she's been risen by the Vicrolls 3 times now, I almost feel like if she really wanted to,
The
she,
Valkyr.
Valkyrie, thanks. If she really wanted to, she could probably find a way to become, quote, like, alive again. But now she's almost kind of enthusiastic about being the Banshee Queen, about being undead. She seems to be taking it in strides. She's kind of it's almost like she's gone from surviving to thriving. Like I almost part of me wonders if you walked up to Sylvanas and you were like, "Hey, I can make a deal with you and I can make you an elf again." Like a real living elf. Part of me wonders if she'd even take the deal. Like she's so devoted to the Forsaken almost that it seems like she's just become this different kind of person. And I think if she does anything, since she kind of shows this willingness to adapt and persevere, I think she kind of might become a new standard for like this maybe a bit of a gray area when it comes to Warcraft quote unquote heroes, because maybe we'll just kind of push the story enough where we can kind of start to question like the lines between good and evil kind of thing, because you know
I
I don't
think
know.
she's I think she's had the opportunity to be a villain and she has denied that. What's interesting about her character is that even as an elf, she cared about her people. Yeah, she had her flaws, but at her core, she cared about her people, and and now her people are the Forsaken, and I think she had the opportunity to lose that. With defeating Arthas, she literally tried to kill herself, but she couldn't. She was unable to. She was told, no, you're going to keep going, and she took that and she accepted it, and then she started to care about the Forsaken. And I think that was a turning point for her, because she started to care about, especially in this expansion, the well-being of the Forsaken and the fact that they can't reproduce. What does that mean for the future of her people? And I think that she's really adapted to that, and it's always been within her character to care about her people. And I don't think betraying the Forsaken is something that she's going to do, because I think that she is Forsaken now, and she's accepted that, for better or worse. Sylvanas is no longer an elf, and she has foregone that entirely. And in the war crimes, you sort of see that more so with Varisa, yeah, that's her sister, um, wanting to reconnect with her, wanting to become a family again in some way, and then basically being denied by Varisa after talking about it with her. I think she realized at that point, well, that's not my family anymore. That's not who I am anymore. I am the Banshee Queen. I am the leader of the Forsaken, and I think that that's for her another turning point where she committed herself. And so I don't think that she is a villain in that sense. I don't think that she is using the Horde, as a lot of people are saying, because the Horde has been there for her and she has been there for the Horde entirely. And I don't know. I just, as a Horde player, maybe I'm misguided in this, but I think that she has taken the Forsaken as her people, and maybe she's taken the Horde as her people as well. But if not, she definitely recognizes that the Horde brings something to the safety of her people, of being in the Horde. So I don't think that she would betray the Horde. Perhaps she would do something awful to the Alliance. She doesn't really care about them, maybe. But as far as for the Horde, I think that her goals and the Horde's align, and I think that they're at least close allies, if not more.
That'd be nice, because
Uh,
I think we're gonna need someone with her kind of skills.
she's cunning, and I don't think we've had a cunning war chief.
Yeah,
But yeah, that is what it is. Speaking of Sylvanas and Jaina, what would you like to see with the Horde and Alliance? Because recently, in the last couple expansions, save Mists of Pandaria, we've sort of been like, okay, we're basically allies with the Alliance because we have bigger threats to deal with. And for me, it's sort of ruined class fantasy or faction fantasy. It's like, oh, well, we don't really fight the Alliance anymore unless you're just PvPing, and that's not really canon in my eyes. It's just more like, hey, we're fighting. Okay, you want to fight? Okay, we're fighting. It's not so much uh, a canonical conflict. It's just sort of a game mechanic. Would you like to see the Horde and the Alliance escalated to the point where we're considering each other enemies, or would you like to see us working more towards a unified peace front?
I I wouldn't mind there being a third faction or one faction. I know it'll never happen because, and for me, just because there's PvP servers. Like, there are fundamental parts of the game that are built on there being two factions at war. And I, even if Blizzard wants to get rid of it, I don't think they could. Um, so I would like there to be a third faction.
Okay,
I wouldn't mind, you
so
know,
you're pro war. You're pro making war, bringing the war back to Warcraft.
yeah, I don't think I am. Um, and a big part of that for me is the state of PvP in WoW. Because if you bring the war back and you make player versus player a thing, I want to get involved in that. I really do. But me playing a warrior, this being like a macro based game, with once you throw in the super competitive mid maxing into the PvP realm, you know you the gap between having a fighting chance and being pure cannon fodder is just absolute garbage, and you're just going to go in and play these games and feel worse and worse and worse and worse and worse about yourself every game that you play. That's not the WoW that I want to be logged into, because like I don't know what it is, because you know or I have an idea, but when you sign up for random bonus battlegrounds, which pretty much ensures you're going to be on the losing side because it's a random bonus battleground, or at least they used to be called bonus battlegrounds. Like, you know, when I get on my Horde tune, Alliance always wins. When I get on my Alliance tune, Horde always wins. So it's just like, no matter which way you go, you just feel like you're getting the crap kicked out of you. So I really want the war to come back, but I also don't want to feel bad about myself every time I log into this game, because you're getting slighted on that. And some servers are horde dominated, some servers are alliance dominated. That's if it's driven by player choice, which without it, it's kind of meaningless. But like capturable zones or something like that, you're pretty much guaranteeing that certain servers are going to be slanted in a certain way. So you might as well do your research. If you really want to play WoW, you need to find a server that's horde dominated with some decent guilds on there, because that's probably the only way you're going to jump on your horde tune and have fun. Otherwise, you're going to get your if you're on Alliance dominated server, you're just gonna get your teeth kicked in by a bunch of mid maxers.
Well, that's the system side of it. But as far as the lore side of it, what would you like to see? Like, would you like to see us find a peace treaty with the Alliance, or would you like to see us become enemies again?
Um, from the lore perspective, I hate to say it, but I'm okay with it ending. Like, um, I love old Warcraft. I love orcs versus humans, but I've seen. I guess I should get a little personal, because I mean it's kind of like a personal opinion. I've seen so many grand conflicts that go far beyond the Horde and Alliance, that threatens our very existence and the existence of the world soul that we live on. I cannot justify my character fighting the Alliance. I just can't justify, like we've had back in Warcraft 3, we had messages about how foolish it was for us to fight each other. Medivh was trying to warn us, everything was trying to warn us. Like, we have literal tentacles sprouting up from the ground. Like, we have people showing up in starships, and we still think it's a good idea for us to fight each other at this point. Doesn't make any sense to me. None. Like, I can't even imagine my dumb, I cannot even imagine like the dumbest, hard-headed, gruntiest, bloodthirsty orc, going, yeah, kill Alliance. Like, that's the only thing I care about, man, is just killing Alliance. It's like, I just can't see it anymore. Like,
Okay, let me preface this with something. What if in the next expansion, um, it starts, and I'm gonna throw this to you as a because I know you're a Horde main. What if in the next expansion it starts with Jaina and Gen teaming up and killing Thrall?
um,
Then do you want to fight?
me that feels more like a political move than one that would be fueled by like factionism at this point. Um, because like it's just kind of one of those things. Jaina, used to be on the side of the Horde or whatever, and that's pretty ballsy on her part to kill Thrall because they used to be friends or whatever. I mean, that'd be
That's what I'm saying. Is does that change your perspective? The fact that they, you know, maybe dishonorably kill the world shaman.
see, nah, because the fact that he's the world shaman and he's doing what I can and yeah, he messed up or whatever, but for me, it's more of a crime against Azeroth than a crime against the Horde because because like the Legion showing up and learning of the other worlds and the other worlds that have old god infections that are just rampant because the guy shows us at least two other worlds that are just surrounded in tentacles or the void. I'm not sure which one they were, but like there are entire planets. And I honestly think that what Azeroth is it's part of a node. Like Azeroth is just a node of other world souls and other things out there in the twisting nether. And like, it's we gotta protect, this sandwich and you know,
I feel
um
I feel like we're getting far away from the point here. Um,
or
a little bit, but basically what I'm trying to find out is to to what extent do you allow this sort of thing to happen, and as a horde member, not want to step in and say, okay, enough's enough. Maybe you say, okay, this is a crime against Azeroth, but does the Alliance condone their actions? Yeah, they're not going to do anything with them.
okay. So I guess my breaking point would be if 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 Jaina steps out of the shadows, Dreadlord or not, whatever, and says the only thing for us now is the complete and total annihilation of the Horde. Um, and then I mean they proceed to let's say Jaina has been secretly building, you know, I don't know. I guess the nuclear submarines, whatever the bomb was, so she has like a fleet of these things, and she launches a surprise assault, and destroys key Horde places, and puts the Horde on the defensive. That would, I guess, be enough for me to be like, oh my god,
So,
you guys
so,
are crazy, but you are literally trying to kill us all. War
so
on.
until she wipes out Thunderbluff, you do whatever you want. Kill Sylvanas, I don't care.
I mean, probably, yeah, but it's like for me, it'd be a great crime because why would we be focused on like,
Our supposed allies.
yeah, when look at what we're looking at. I mean, the lore of the Titans and everything else that could be going on and the truths, the secrets of our past and what's going on with the old gods. I mean, that's the stuff that I'm really interested in. And I mean, yeah, it's Warcraft, but I'd be kind of sad to not like push towards a WoW where we could eventually get on other planets or something. But I mean, that's not something that I think WoW is gonna do because they I you know you when you have something that people have been playing for like 12 years and they're like super invested in it and they love it, they don't want it to change. You know, like even tiny things can upset people. They're not about to delete the old world and start a new one. So I don't even know what I'm complaining or even thinking about. It's crazy.
I would tell you what, I would love to see a major faction player assassinated by another one. You know, Sylvanas kills Gen kills uh, anyone really. Bane, you know, Jaina kills Thrall, something like that. I would love to see that stir up a conflict and
Yeah.
make us question our alliance. Because to me, we've gotten too familiar. And if we're going to be allies, let's be allies. But I don't think that we will. So we need to be enemies. And I would love to see that conflict. I mean, because if you can imagine that, the Night Elves are going to get roped into the conflict because they're part of the alliance. And even though they might not have condoned the actions of, say, Jaina killing Thrall, they're not going to condemn Jaina, probably. You know, unless we have another Siege of Orgrimmar type thing. Uh, I,
I
I
know.
I would love to see that conflict come into play.
I know, and part of me wonders if we're gonna get that because sometimes I wonder if there's like a secret playbook that Blizzard has, and it's kind of the same thing they do in like the LARPs that we have. Outcomes are broken down into positive or negative outcome. There's things that the players can do, and there's this is what happens if this happens, this is what happens if this happens, and maybe just maybe, there's like this playbook sitting in the offices of of Blizzard, and it's like okay, players like Garrosh. This is how we're going to proceed. Players don't like Garrosh. Okay, we make him a villain and we do those things. Maybe we as a player base, either we chose a path or we cut one off because we complained about Garrosh so much or something that Blizzard has kind of changed and sculpted the events. I mean,
I see what you mean.
WoW would be such a different place at such a different place right now if we as a community embraced Garrosh and maybe we would have a bit more of like of opposing factions with him currently being our leader throughout like the Burning Legion being here and different things. um but I mean it's so hard to say, and that's like I sometimes I just wish we would let the developers do what they want, because like when people get on the forums and and they complain about things and they trying to pressure the developers and getting the kind of game that they want. Okay, that's great. Okay, you're a druid and you complain so much on the forums. All right, whatever, you get a forest spec. Well, I mean, I kind of I would like to sometimes log in and play the kind of World of Warcraft that druids were not gods before the rest of us. Maybe Garrosh would still be in power, and a lot of interesting things might be happening. But I mean, that's the kind of special that just keep makes you sick.
Okay, so last thing I kind of want to talk about, and then we'll open it up. But we've talked about this briefly, and maybe some other people know about this. I just want to see your feelings. Talk about my feelings. How would you feel initially? And I want the whole spectrum. If we get to BlizzCon or Gamescom or whenever they decide to announce the next expansion, and we get there and it's World of Warcraft: Return of the Lich King. What are your thoughts? Because Blizzard has trademarked that.
Um, I think it would be interesting. It's definitely one of those moments where I cross my fingers and I hope, okay, maybe finally enough people have stopped playing the game where it's not so much about popular decisions, but it's about something that Blizzard wants to do. Because like if Blizzard is excited to do it, they're gonna they're gonna do a good job. We're gonna get a great expansion. I think anyway. Like I'd rather put my faith in those guys, but like sure, great. I mean, there's so much material there. If they really want to talk about that story, like, okay, yeah, it means we won't immediately deal with the old gods, and it may mean that we don't have a final conclusion on the Legion. But okay, they need to keep them on the back burner because they need to have some sort of like ultimate goal or whatever. I don't know. I think it's awesome. Like because anyone like I'm pretty sure everyone who has played this game has had a moment where they've caught themselves trying to like untie the knot for like an hour or so as they daydream at work or something, and they're kind of like, the new Lich King's still there. What does that mean? What's the Scourge doing? Is the Scourge still a big deal? Like there's the rabbit hole to go down there is huge, and there's still a huge potential in my mind that Arthas, because okay, so like death means almost nothing in Warcraft at this point, right? But
Correct.
but when Arthas dies, Arthas says, "All I see before me is darkness," and you can definitely interpret this as there is no redemption for Arthas. But we've constantly heard about how he was the only thing holding the Scourge back. He was still trying to make these honorable actions, and I personally believe that because okay, his father says the same thing that Yogg Saron
Yeah,
says
I was
when you're
hoping
in
we
the
were gonna get here.
visions.
Yeah, I was hoping we were gonna get here.
Okay, yeah, this is one of my favorite things to talk about because I don't think Arthas was saying that he was like dying. I think Arthas it was the final spit in the face to the old god that he that he like defied
Well,
because Yogg Saron, I think he was trying to get, he was trying to turn the Scourge into his own army, and Arthas wouldn't do it. Arthas wouldn't give in to the old god. And I think he was calling the vision of his father in front of him like he was addressing that his father, and I think he was just saying to that spirit or whatever, like, you're not my father. All I see before me is darkness. And he died. And Yogg Saron was kind of like, all right, well, good thing that I finally got someone else who will actually do the job I wanted him to do.
well,
And
yeah, for those that aren't familiar with the theory is that as the Lich King dies, we basically get this plot device that's like, oh, well, there must always be a Lich King. Uh, this has never been a case before, but suddenly it's the case. And so the theory is that's not just a plot device, that the image that we see there, the king, is actually Yogg Saron in disguise. And it's not so far fetched when you think about Icecrown Citadel being made out of the blood of Yogg Saron, Serenite. And we know how powerful the old gods are in corruption. So it's not crazy to think that Arthas was corrupted, if in large part or small part, by Yogg Saron, and may have had to you know resist his will. Even in if you quest in Ice Crown, you'll hear about internment camps where there are slave labor, some of them human, some of them orc, but some of them undead, and the undead are actually frightened of the Serenite and they go crazy because they hear whispers. Which this is the undead, which are mindless beings. So it's interesting that maybe Yogg-Saron had more of a part to play in that. So maybe a Lich King expansion would play more with old gods, maybe. But I just wanted to refresh everyone on uh, that theory.
I don't know. I would be ecstatic. I would be thrilled because you could throw back in the undead, the scourge, but this time it would be like the scourge of the old gods. Like they would find a way to penetrate the surface with an undead army, and then if they have an underground subterranean army, I mean that is just, I mean it just eats up the ground from underneath us.
I would love
And
to. I would love to go and fight the Scourge again because I'm done fighting demons and I'm done fighting. Yeah, I would love to fight old gods, but really in WoW you have three central things, which are old gods, the Scourge, and the Burning Legion. And we basically dealt with the Scourge, but I would love it if we actually didn't and we find out, oh no, you've got to go and deal with the Scourge again. That would be great. Um,
yeah, that's more Warcrafty to me.
Agreed, and I would love to see that. But my initial impressions, if we got to BlizzCon and they were like World of Warcraft: Return of the Lich King, going into it, I would be dreading it. I'd be like, please, I don't want this. It could be really bad. It could be messed up. But as soon as they announce it, I would get on that hype train. I would be like, I'm all aboard. Like, let's go. I'm stoked for this.
Yeah.
So I would say hesitantly optimistic about it. But yeah, that's pretty much everything I had written down. Was there anything you wanted to talk about that we haven't sort of covered, or
Uh,
anything you want to talk about more?
I know I'm always a big fan of the conspiracy theory kind of things, but I don't know. I mean, WoW's been one of those games. I think the majority of the people who play it are like, why do I even play this game? um, but Legion took some bold moves. I'm kind of excited for the future of WoW or something. Um, I think it might finally get a little more interesting, a little more gamey.
Yeah,
Um,
I would like a little bit more gamey, a little bit more systems. But honestly, and I say this, and I enjoyed it. I really did. I enjoyed Legion, but I felt like the story and the lore fell a little bit flat, and we could have had a little bit more deep, uh, cool storylines. And I know that in 7.3, we're supposed to be getting that. It's been dubbed the story patch, the lore patch, and I'm really excited to play it. I haven't seen all the spoilers, but some of them, and it sounds good. But yeah, I would like WoW, the dev team, the lore team, to take a little bit more risks with the storytelling and tell us some really engaging and thought provoking stories. A little bit
yeah,
less a little bit less anime, a little bit less uh, good versus evil sort of predictable storylines, and take those risks and see those opposite points of view and give us divide us as a community and say, well, I'm cheering for this people, well, I'm cheering for this people again, because that's what made Warcraft 3 so great, is you could play as the Scourge and you could cheer for Arthas, and then in the next campaign you'd be fighting against them and you'd want to destroy them at all costs, and I love that, and that that's what the Warcraft series has always been to me, and I would love to see that come back in the storyline, and be less homogenized and give us some opposite factions, give us some controversial story.
that'd be nice. But like again, this is like where I start to feel bad for the WoW devs because this is like an MMO. It's kind of a bad place to try to tell a story. Like there's a lot of things going against you, and like even when I'm trying to follow the story, I find it really hard to keep up with. Um, it's
Well,
it's just, I don't know.
here's a question for you. With WoW the way that it is, which expansion or storyline or patch, if you will, which story has grabbed you the most? That's you've been engaged in and you've wanted to know what happens next and just been really invested in.
Um, it
I think my answer will surprise you.
For me it was Mista Pandaria, and then I got really excited at the beginning of WoD, but something happened around the time I went to Gargrand, and it was just kind of like the problem of scale kicked in, and it was like, and it was I was like really underwhelmed, and it was like, it's not. And then you just end up doing these things that didn't make sense because you were farming it at Pegasus crystals, and the whole thing just fell apart for me.
I agree with you, actually. My favorite expansion, story wise, was the Miss Pandaria storyline, which I know is controversial because a lot of people are like, pandas were awful. But if you look at the deeper underlying story of Mop, it actually had some really interesting and engaging things going on, especially with the whole landfall patch and the, you know, war against Garrosh. That was Warcraft being Warcraft again, and I honestly feel like as much of a meme Miss Pandaria was, because it was pandas and we're just telling the story of pandas. Don't get me wrong, I personally loved the story, Kunlai, Kunlun, whatever it was
Yeah,
called,
there was so much.
Jade Forest, but 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 honestly, the story of Mop in the later patches with the Horde versus Alliance, especially on the Isle of Thunder, that was a story. That was Warcraft again, and I want to see that. I want to see that sort of shifting storylines, big plot developments that are happening. Um, the Horde and Alliance really at the center of the conflict. Yes, there were other things, but at its core, we were seeing those major lore characters at work, and that's what I would like to see, and less God King Scovilds.
Yeah, because I don't know, like in this Xpac, They did some things that kind of brought my character into the story, but they were not as personal as the ones in like Mop was, and I don't know.
Yeah, and so that's I think that's basically it. What do you guys think? Let us know. Comment down below. We'd love to have a discussion. If you would like to see more videos like this of us just sort of talking about Warcraft, talking about games, let us know. Um, I've had a really good time. Kag, anything else you want to say?
I like I like waffles more than I like pancakes.